All right, coming up, we're going to measure the outlook for blockchain services under the Trump presidency next. This is Bloomberg. All right, now back to the Goldman Sachs Technology Conference in San Francisco. Blockchain, big at this year's conference. Among the most important players, Ripple. The San Francisco-based company uses blockchain to settle financial transactions between some of the world's biggest banks. Caroline Hyde is still there, standing with a guy named Brad Garlinghouse, who's also a former AOL executive and author of the infamous Yahoo Peanut Butter Memo. Caroline?
He is a man that you know well, Corey, and I'm just sat opposite him right now. Of course, Brad, we're just hearing about potentially the fact that all of this, when we're looking at blockchain, is potentially in hype mode. Are we overhyping blockchain? When does it become a part of everyday lexicon? When do all banks adopt it?
Well, I think there's parts of what's going on with blockchain that are overhyped. It's not necessarily a solution for everything, but there are examples where it's a perfect use case. It's a perfect solution for payments, for example. You have two people trying to settle a transaction without the risk of the central counterparty. You can do that with blockchain today. Ripple has been fortunate. We now have 10 production accounts. We announced the third largest bank in India last month, as well as the largest bank in the Middle East going into production.
What about new clients? What about international expansion? What about being adopted en masse? Is that something that you foresee, or will you not be able to get into all banks because they'll see a conflict of interest here?
Well, we work with about 90 banks worldwide today. We've announced 10 of those production contracts. It's certainly there's about 8,000 SWIFT-enabled banks and almost 20 to 30,000 banks around the world, so we've got a long way to go. But we also think that we're clearly solving a real problem around cross-border payments. It's amazing how much friction there is and how much time it takes to send a payment that's your own money.
Don't I know it? I'm a Brit in the US. It's painful.
Well, I make the joke, and even on your show, it's easier to send $10,000 by taking it with you on a plane than it is to send it through the banking system. We're solving that, and I think in the future, you're really going to see the banking sector compete with the Alibabas and the Amazons and the Googles, and they need to be able to compete on a level playing field with next generation technology like blockchain solutions.
Interesting that you're talking about competing with some of the tech giants there. I want to understand how this competitive landscape works in your mind's eye, because you mentioned SWIFT-enabled banks there. Is SWIFT your key competitor? What about the likes of the startups that I'm seeing grow in the United Kingdom, in Germany? I mean, TransferWise comes to mind. That's the way I can send payments very swiftly. How does it all work for you?
Well, so we view TransferWise as solving a great problem that the banks should be solving. And so really TransferWise is a potential partner or customer of ours. When we look at the payment stack, a lot of things are happening at the top level of the kind of application layer of that stack, but the infrastructure is all the same.
Yeah.
Even cool, innovative things like Apple Pay. It's really just a different way to swipe your card, and everything underneath that wave of the phone is the existing infrastructure. Our view is if we really want to unlock innovation throughout payments, we have to reset the rails, we have to reset the infrastructure, and that's what we're focused on.
And is blockchain being adopted en masse by banks? Do you think what's stopping them? What's holding them back? Are there worries?
You know, we've been really fortunate because I think we're solving a clear use case that is a pain point for their customers. We're getting a lot of adoption, a lot of activity. It takes time, of course. You know, banks have a lot of other IT projects that go on internally. But, you know, we've been fortunate that we're not seeing banks say, no, we're not interested in that. We see banks say, we're very interested in that. Let's talk about Q3 or Q4 as opposed to necessarily right now.
What about Ripple? Remain independent? People eyeing you up? Have you had any offers?
We've had a great run, and certainly as I think blockchain has become more hyped, frankly, we get more and more interest and attention. But right now we're focused on the customer. And if we can deliver on that, continue to deliver more customers and solve more of their problems for their customers, we'll be in a good place regardless of how we choose to see the future unfold.
I mean, I know you don't deploy Bitcoin. That's one type of cryptocurrency that uses a blockchain. Bitcoin, is that overhyped? Is the price about to come smashing back down? You
know, well, two thoughts on that. One is we're almost the opposite end of some of the Bitcoin community. Some of the Bitcoin community have said down with banks, down with governments, and down with fiat currency. We take a view that banks are going to be at the heart of this internet of value, where value can move the way information moves today. We think governments aren't going away, and with fiat currency, while there's a role for digital assets like Bitcoin or like a digital asset we use called XRP, we don't think that's the end-all be-all. And so we are solving a liquidity challenge for banks with XRP. The price of Bitcoin has been really volatile, and of course, when there's volatility, banks don't love that. Well, the only people who like that are speculators and traders. We think to solve that institutional use case that we're focused on, we want a nice stable asset, and the asset we work with is called XRP.
Let's move away a little bit into your history, into your past. We had Corey Johnson just talking about the Peanut Butter Manifesto, the legendary piece that came out, about a decade ago, all about your previous employer, Yahoo, the fact that potentially it spread itself too thinly. What was this company? 10 years on, changed?
Yeah, it's amazing to me that it's been 10 years. I try not to imagine I've gotten that much older, but I think what
You and me both.
What I felt like 10 years ago, and I very much was a passionate Yahoo employee, loved my experience there. I felt like Yahoo increasingly was spreading itself thin, and that what were we trying to be the best in the world at? And whether you're Yahoo or frankly any other company, I think you have to understand what your true north is. What is the primary problem you're solving for your customers? And I think Yahoo is trying to be a lot of things. Were they a search company, a mail company, a media company, or an advertising company? And they were okay or maybe kind of good at a lot of those, but not great at any of them. And then Google comes in and steals search, and other companies come in and steal mail, and other companies come in and steal media. And I think Yahoo could have and probably should have been more focused and more concentrated about what they wanted to be great at for their customers.
And now another company comes in and steals Yahoo, buying it, Verizon. Potentially, it's not even gone through. Do you think this deal will go through, and do you think they'll be able to get value from what Yahoo's consumer base is?
I think it'll probably go through. I think obviously it's been a rough ride for the Yahoo team, and they've had some security breaches that have caused some turbulence there. But I think there is great synergy in putting Yahoo and AOL together. It's something that Tim Armstrong has been excited about for a long time. And I think that there's real value to be created there. And Tim did a great job with AOL, and now part of Verizon. But I think he can continue that by putting those two assets together.
Two assets that you previously worked for. It's great to have you on. Thank you so much. A great conversation. None other than Brad Garlinghouse, of course, Ripple CEO. Corey, to you.
Thank you very much, Caroline Hadd and Brad Garlinghouse, of course, as always. All right, coming up next, we're going to hear from the man who helps you settle your